All right, Brother Meeker, this is my friend Tara, and she's going to help me out with the website. Okay, restart with your 3 questions.
So what is the matrix of domination?
Okay, the matrix of domination we're going to talk about a little bit later. Since that's one of your questions, we're going to focus on that a little more. So I'll answer that more in depth later on. So what's your second question?
How did the Wounded Knee battle massacre thing start?
Okay, so it goes back to a thing called a ghost dance. And the ghost dance is a religious thing in the Native American culture. And so this ghost dance was banned from, government officials banned this ghost dance. And so, I just lost my train of thought. They banned this ghost dance, and so they got wind, gossip around town was that Native Americans were using this ghost dance still. So then they met up. The government officials got guns and stuff, and they met up at this train station, and where the train passed through. It wasn't really a legitimate train station. And they met there, and since the government officials had guns and stuff, it kind of got more serious than it should have been. And one of the Native Americans, his name was Black Chief, was deaf, and he didn't hear government official command, and so one of the government officials shot him, which started this huge massacre where a bunch of people, men, women, children, they died. So what was your third question?
If someone were to give you $10 to help the people of Cherokee, what would you do with it?
That's a good question. Let's see. One of their huge problems, $10 probably wouldn't be enough to help out with it, but one of their huge problems is their housing situations. So I'd probably put it towards that in some way, just because they have terrible housing situations. They live with probably 3 different generations of family members, just because they can't afford to have a good housing situation for everyone. And their sewage is bad, plumbing's bad, just everything in their houses are bad. So I'd probably put it towards that and helping them with that. Okay, so this matrix of domination, what you wanted to talk about. What it is it's quoted on my website, corresponding systems of inequality that are equally interconnected. So it's like race when you're on your own. Okay, so black on its own is pretty oppressed, pretty kind of discriminated against, forgotten, stuff like that. But when you put different interconnected discrimination, I guess, with it, say a black with gender, so female, when you put that together, it suddenly becomes stronger because they're interconnected. So does that make sense, or should I?
Sort of. Yeah.
Sort of. Okay. So when people unite together, it helps them make it stronger. So that's where domination comes in, that word. So I just wanted to talk a bit about the obstacles that Native Americans face and kind of tie it in with the matrix of domination. So housing and neighborhood, like I kind of already talked about, it's really hard. The Native Americans just don't have enough money. They live on, what's that word? Reservations, there we go. They live on reservations, and so they're kind of their own community on their own kind of. So they don't get as much money from the government and stuff like that. So they are really, it would be kind of like comparing it to the ghettos of our, Have you heard like?
I've never been to a ghetto, but I've heard stories.
Okay, so they just have pretty much 1 to 2 story houses that are just really small and condensed. Sometimes they're only like 2 or 3 bedrooms, and they have 3 generations of family living in them. And they, like I said before, they just have terrible plumbing and stuff like that, so it leads to higher crime, and we'll get to that in a second. The workplace and the environment, Native Americans are pretty okay at the moment. There's not many stories that you hear about discrimination in the workplace of Native Americans. I mean, of course there are situations, but it's just not as wide known among other races. You know, I've heard lots of stories out there with white and blacks being discriminated against. But Native Americans, there's a law in the Constitution that provides them a safe workplace for them. So they're pretty okay with that. Race in the criminal justice system, I found this interesting. Native Americans are more likely to be victimized to rape, murder. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but they're more likely to be victimized, and I found that on 3 different sites, so I'm pretty sure it's true. Also, I don't know if you know this, but they're discriminated big time with cops and drinking. So they're about 2 to 3 times more likely to be arrested.
Sorry, are you going to use a piano?
No.
Okay, we'll just be...
Okay. They're 2 to 3 times more likely to be arrested for drunk driving. So, or even like any drinking, just because I didn't know this before I started studying Native Americans, but they're more likely, I mean, they're well known for having drinking problems. Did you know that? You did? I did not know that before.
Did you grow up near any reservations?
I didn't. No. So I didn't even see a reservation until I came out west, which is weird. But
Where did you grow up?
Florida. Yeah. So yeah. So I when I started studying them, I did not know anything about them. Okay, and then also Native Americans, race and the media. So I guess I want to ask you, what do you see like Native Americans portrayed in the media?
I don't see a lot of Native Americans portrayed in the media.
Okay, good. So they're either not there, which is true, or they are portrayed as these savages that are just the bad guys. So I haven't seen many Western films, but my dad used to love Western films. And so when I would watch them with him, there'd be cowboys and the Indians. And the cowboys were always the good guys saving the damsel in distress, but the Indians were who they were running away from and who they were fighting, because they were just these terrible people who were just savages and running around trying to kill them. So they are still, to this day, portrayed as that. But there are some videos that are starting to actually get their culture into. So we're slowly progressing with that with films. I haven't seen any, but they are slowly progressing. Okay. Sorry. And then my last question, first I want to ask you, because I don't know if you've ever even thought about it, but do you think racism can be eliminated?
I don't know. I think the more we talk about it, the less likely it is to be eliminated. So I think when you're little, no one tells you about racism and you never think about it.
Mm-hmm.
But if people talk to you about racism, you start to wonder if maybe racism is true and if we should do that. I
could see that, yeah. So this whole semester in this race and ethnic class, we've just been studying about, it's kind of like our opinion question, can racism be eliminated? And I've kind of come to the conclusion that it can't be eliminated, just because, yeah, we've progressed like throughout the years, if you think about it, with black and whites, we've progressed that way. We've come a long way from being segregated, but even still to this day, we still see race as something that defines us. So if you're walking around campus, you see a different skin color, you still pay attention to that. And so until we are in our everyday surroundings and we are just completely colorblind and we don't see color as an issue, I think then racism can be eliminated. But as of right now, I don't think it would be possible, just because I think everybody has to want to make a change, and at this point there's some people that are still holding on to racism. I know growing up in the South, there's major racism there, and they're just holding on to it for whatever reason. So I don't think it can be eliminated. It would take a long time to do that, but that is all. Thank you. Is it not going?